What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Kangaroo Black coming back once again to talk about my Alabama Crimson Tide and the new coaching hires that Coach Kalen DeBoer made on yesterday. He hired an offensive line coach, a tight ends coach, and a linebackers coach. So we're going to go ahead and get into the video and talk a little bit about these guys. And the first one is the offensive line coach, Chris Kaplivic. All right. This guy has a long coaching record. It goes back to 1991. His resume is too long to talk about, but he got hired at Baylor December of last year, so he was only with Baylor a couple of months, and he hadn't coached a game at Baylor, so nothing to talk about there. But before Baylor, he was at Michigan State. He's been at Michigan State for the last 40 years as the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator slash assistant head coach. When he was at Michigan State in 2021, the running back, I believe his name is the running back. His name is Kenneth Walker III. He's now with the Seattle Seahawks. Behind Chris Kavanaugh's offensive line, Kenneth Walker ran for over 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns. He was the Doak Award winner, and this guy, Chris Kaplivic, his offensive line paved the way for all of that. So we not getting a dud as an offensive line coach. Also, his offensive line when he was at North Carolina also had a running back to run for over 1,000 yards. So, like I say, we not getting a dud as an offensive line coach. I know people, that want these big names, but hey, you get guys that are successful no matter the name. It don't always, have to be a big name. At one time, Nick Saban's name wasn't a big name. So hey, it is what it is. At one time, Urban Meyer's name wasn't a big name. At one time, Kirby Smart's name wasn't a big name. Just because we don't get guys with SEC experience or coming out of the SEC, that don't mean nothing. Coach Kalen DeBoer is getting successful guys. Hey, he's not bringing 5 or 6 coaches from the same team, and that team was mediocre. He's getting the best of the best off of every one of these teams that he's taking coaches from. So hey, it is what it is. Y'all can think what y'all want to think, but I think this guy, he's successful, especially at North Carolina and Michigan State. All right, they successful at their job. The teams might not be all of that, but their position and their duties, they are successful, and that's why Coach Kalen DeBoer is bringing these guys to Alabama. Now let's talk about the tight ends coach, Brian Ellis. Okay, so where's Brian Ellis coming from? Georgia Southern. He was the offensive coordinator at Georgia Southern. He's coming to Alabama to be our tight ends coach. Okay, you might say Georgia Southern. Like I say, I don't care where they come from, long as they successful in what they do. That's all I want. I ain't looking for a whole team. I ain't looking for a whole coaching staff. I'm looking for an individual. The same thing that Coach Kalen DeBoer is looking for. And if that individual has a track record, a winning track record, or being successful at what they do, he want to bring them. And that's good. But anyway, Brian Ellis, his coaching career. This says Brian Ellis led one of the most prolific attacks in the country last season at Georgia Southern. Passing attacks, I meant. But anyway, matter of fact, he was the offense coordinator, like I said, at Georgia Southern. He come to us to be the tight ends coach. But anyway, led one of the most prolific passing attacks in the country last season as the Eagles ranked 13th nationally in passing the offense with 302 yards per game. All right. He was also a co-offensive coordinator at Western Kentucky in 2021, the season in which New England Patriots quarterback Bailey Zappi broke the NCAA record for single-season passing yards. 5,967 passing yards and 62 touchdowns. Jesus, This guy threw for almost 6,000 yards and 62 touchdowns in a season. That's crazy. But anyway, he was also the quarterbacks coach at USC in 2018, the season after Sam Darnold was selected 10th overall in the 2017 NFL Draft. The Trojans, USC, and Brian Ellis elected to start J.T. Daniels as a true freshman, becoming only the second true freshman quarterback to start USC's season opener. Daniels wasn't a very successful quarterback in college. He was at USC. He was at Georgia. He was at, I believe he went to West Virginia, I believe. And then he went to Rice. So he was at 4 programs. He played college football for 7 years. So J.T. Daniels won very successful in college ball. Will he wind up in the NFL? That remains to be seen. But this guy, Brian Ellis, he was a successful offensive coordinator. I'll say that. Now, how he do as a tight ends coach, I don't know, because from what I read, he's never been a tight ends coach. Okay, so I don't know really what to think about that one. But he's never been a tight ends coach, but he has been an offensive coordinator. So being an offensive coordinator, you got to work with every position on the offense. So maybe he know a lot about tight ends. We'll see. But we got some nice tight ends on our roster. Robbie Allison, Danny Lewis, and who else we got? Caleb Odom that just came in. So we got some guys, tight ends, that he can work with. But overall, it's gonna be Sheridan who's running that offense. Anyway, Sheridan, he had to move from the tight ends coach to the offensive coordinator position since Ryan Grubb decided he wanted to leave and go to the NFL and coach at Seattle. Moving on to the newly hired linebackers coach, Christian Robinson. I don't think this hire was too hard because this guy has a plethora of SEC experience. He played in the SEC. He then coached in the SEC. But last season, 2023, he was at Baylor as an inside linebackers coach. And even at Baylor, he was successful. He coached this linebacker, Matt Jones, to earn honorable mentions, leading the team with 82 tackles, 11 and a half tackles for loss. Even at Baylor, he was successful at coaching these linebackers. But back to the SEC. All right, he coached linebackers at Auburn in 2022. From 2018 to 2021, he was coaching linebackers at Florida. All right, and remember, Florida was in the SEC championship in 2020 and gave my Alabama Crimson Tide a run for their money. I believe we only beat them Florida Gators by 4 points, I believe, in that game, maybe 6, but it was single digits. But anyway, and then he was a graduate assistant at Mississippi State in 2017. From 2015 to 16, graduate assistant at Ole Miss. And from 2013 and 14, he was a grad assistant at Georgia. And he also played college football at Georgia. So I believe he played from 2009 to 2011 at Georgia. But this guy, he can help recruit the South. We got another guy on staff who got relationships all across the South. So, hey, we just got another recruiter. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, hopefully he can help us get some of the best defensive guys out of the South. Well, continue to help us get some of the best defensive guys out of the South. But anyway, those are the 3 new hires that Coach Kalen DeBoer made on yesterday. Offensive line coach Chris Kaplivic, tight ends coach Brian Ellis, and linebackers coach Christian Robinson. So this is what the Alabama Crimson Tide staff is looking like. Of course, head coach Kalen DeBoer, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Nick Sheridan, who was at Washington last season. Then we got the co-offense coordinator and wide receivers coach Jamarcus Shepard, who was at Washington last season. Running backs coach Robert Gillespie, holdover from Alabama. All right. Offensive line coach Chris Kaplivic from Baylor. He was at Baylor last year. Tight ends coach Brian Ellis, Georgia Southern last year as an offensive coordinator. The defense coordinator, Kane Womack, who was at South Alabama last year. Co-defense coordinator, defense back coach Maurice Lindquist, who was at Buffalo last season. Co-defense coordinator, defensive back coach Colin Hitzler, who was at Wisconsin last season. Defensive line coach Freddie Roach, holdover from Alabama last season. And offensive linebackers coach outside linebackers. What the hell I'm talking about offensive linebackers? But outside linebackers coach Christian Robinson from Baylor. Okay. Also, Kane Womack, he will be coaching the inside linebackers. So he'll be defensive coordinator and inside linebackers coach. So that is our staff. And hey, got to roll with it, baby. Might not be big names, but every one of these guys is successful. And guess what? For us recruiting, we got ties to the west and ties in the south. All right. So Alabama is just going to continue. Plus, we got a couple of transfers to come in yesterday. I'm going to talk about that later. But anyway, I appreciate y'all tuning in and hanging out with me for these few minutes. But I'll be back later on today to talk about these transfers that we got in on yesterday, or who committed to us on yesterday. So until then, I'll talk to y'all later, and roll damn tide.